Order the policy committee meeting, for April 25th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Member Dugan?
Present.
Member Magnolia?
Present.
Okay, so tonight, the plan is to tackle Section I, or as much of it as we can, which revolves around instruction. So the start of the plan would be to take another look at let me welcome a few people as well before we go. I want to get into the work. So Dorothy Presser, thank you for being here from MASC. Member Castellanos is here to help us out tonight. Thank you. And then obviously Member Magnolia, who's on the committee. Superintendent Ruggiero, thank you for being here. And now we can get going. So IGB is where we're going to start. And last time we met, I believe it was April, what was it, the 4th?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. We had a question about section IGB and the wording in it. The second paragraph refers to the deputy superintendent shall be responsible for all services for students who are not eligible for special education assistance. And so we had a question about that. And so Superintendent Ruggiero, I was wondering if you could kind of enlighten us on how you think that wording should be.
Sure. I spoke to Dr. Alvarez. We discussed it, and we both feel very strongly that all decisions land on the superintendent and that the superintendent can assign a designee to make decisions, but typically those designees are following the superintendent's mindset on how they would want to answer, for the decision. So we recommend that it be superintendent.
Okay, so the recommendation would be to eliminate deputy and assistant and make it superintendent.
You want it to say superintendent or designee, or just superintendent?
You could do superintendent or designee.
Designee.
I think that would be fine.
Okay. Member Magnolia.
So are we still looking at the MASC version as taking the place of the third paragraph in the Lynn version? So that what we would have is the IGB from our current policy manual
Correct.
to have that first paragraph, then have curriculum supervision and coordination, and then under support services to put the MASC recommendation, but change it to the superintendent or designee.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I think that's where you had left it last.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'd like to move that change then for IGB.
Okay. So I guess I'll second that and roll call.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that wraps up that. And that from here, we need to move on to IHAE, which is requirements for physical education. So I'll give everybody a moment to kind of flip to that page. IHAE. It's a lot of paperwork tonight. Okay, so Ms. Presser, I wonder if you could you have a recommendation for this? I wonder if you could
It sort of looked to me like this, the date on this policy is 1978.
Yep.
So it looked to me like it might have been put in place when the state decided that physical education should be through all the grades. It's covered in other policies under a bigger umbrella, so I would recommend rescinding or deleting this policy.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. It does seem very dated to me as well.
Agree.
Yes. Okay. And then the next one is moving on to IHA.
So we have IHAE-R.
IHAE-R. I'm sorry. I skipped that.
I think I goofed a little on the numbering in my,
Okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
To me, it's the same thing. It's a -R, it's not even a policy,
Right.
so I would take it out.
Yes. Okay, so move to eliminate that.
That's just IHA-R, not IHAE-R, correct?
I have IHAE-R.
Are you looking at basic instructional programs?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking
Physical
at.
education.
Oh, you're, okay. Sorry, that's out of order from our.
I think I goofed up in my.
Oh, that's okay.
policy
No, that's
Right
okay.
sheet. Sorry about that.
Oh, right, so that's still under physical
Physical
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's, if you're looking at the actual policies and not the document with the notes, then that's kind of the order I'm going in, I guess.
Okay. Yes, I agree, strike that.
I agree, yeah.
Then the next one I have is IHAI/IHAQ.
Okay, should we finish the IHAs?
Sure, we could do that.
I know it's a slate out of
Yep.
order, but,
Yep.
so we have IHA, Basic Instructional Program.
Right, so that's,
And,
so that begins IHAE, dash E,
no,
IHA dash
this one
E.
is just IHA, there's no dashes,
Okay.
no Es.
Okay. Should I get to, I got it, okay, yeah.
So, and this one's, it's IHA. I mean, to me, this also looked like it should be deleted as something that was dated and no longer described the basic instructional program.
Yeah, I agreed.
I agree as well. My only, so I just want to make sure we're clear about this. IHA, no dash, I have Lynn Vocational and Technical Institute, where that starts.
Yeah.
Okay, so your recommendation is
You
delete?
know why? I can tell you why.
Okay,
Because I was looking at the second page when I typed the
okay,
title.
no, that's okay.
Yeah.
No worries. I just want to make sure we're clear about
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Yes.
Okay,
And then dash E,
then dash E, correct.
which is the same thing. I mean, to me, it is, it's it's in other policies and it's stated.
Okay.
So I would delete that as well.
Hold on one second, I have to.
It's a beefy one tonight.
I don't know. I have IHAE, but not dash E.
It follows right after IHA.
Okay. Basic instruction.
It's called, they're both called basic instructional program.
Ah, that's why it's confusing, because they have the exact same name. Yep,
They
got
do.
it, okay.
As does dash R.
Yes.
Char does as well,
Okay.
yes.
To me, IHA dash R looked like just direct quotes from regulation, which I don't think you need to have in the policy manual at all.
No.
So the recommendation would be to
Strike.
strike that completely? Okay.
Yep.
So the thought is that's already in the law, so, okay.
Yep.
Alrighty. All right. And then IHAE, we had already discussed, that was physical education, okay.
And the dash R we already discussed.
And dash R, we had already discussed, okay.
Then we get to IHAI.
Okay, now we're back in alphabetical order, thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay.
It doesn't look to me like this is even policy or probably accurate.
And I would add that I don't believe it exists anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't,
Well,
yeah.
it's a pilot program, right? So if it doesn't exist anymore, then,
Yes, obviously it didn't, yeah.
so I think, yeah.
It was only piloted at classical as well, according to this, so, okay.
So
s-
occupational education, IHAI, if you look at, it says at the bottom, MASC, October 2016, we actually just went through section I ourselves and deleted this policy from our reference manual.
Okay.
So I would recommend deleting it.
Can you explain why?
Just feeling like this was covered under, the umbrella of the curriculum frameworks well enough that it didn't need to be its own separate policy.
Okay. Strike.
So the recommendation would be to strike that, okay?
IHAK-R, which is a Lynn document. I also look at it and feel like it also is well covered under the curriculum frameworks without needing to be its own separate policy.
I would add to that, Dorothy, that with the civics projects and the new expectations for 8th grade and 10th grade,
Right.
it falls under this, and that's a requirement.
That's a requirement now, yes, correct, so, you're right, I think the state covers this in the framework. So again, the recommendation would be to strike. Okay.
So IHAM, health education. In the there are two versions of this one, the Lynn version and the MASC version. The MASC version, in the describing the health education programming, adds the term research-based, which is not in the Lynn version. You might want to add that. And it also has a place to insert how health education is implemented throughout the grades, which you may want to insert, or you may want to leave this as it is. It also has an additional paragraph that is a little bit more descriptive in the topics that are covered in health education than appears in the Lynn version.
Correct. That's the third one in the MASC version. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think even just that bolded part where health education will be taught as a separate academic discipline, we don't have that in the Lynn version. And I think that is important that we do that.
But we want to make sure that it accurately reflects what happens, which is,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct.
So we do have health classes, but not every student takes health. We do not have the
Right.
number of teachers necessary to do that. At the elementary level, health and PE kind of merge together. There are times where it's physical activity, and there are times where it's let's learn about health. And at the secondary level, there are health classes that some students take, and then, of course, there are PE classes. I know that where in the curriculum office, they are looking at the health curriculum currently and trying to update, because we're not up to date. And so that could change. I think that in terms of the policy, I personally would say we would go with MASCs, and then we would like revise it or update it once we know what our curriculum is, what the changes are going to be in the city,
Right.
to insert like the more specific information.
So at this point, should we just leave out that bolded sentence?
I would recommend leaving
Yeah.
out that bolded
Okay.
sentence. So we adopt the MASC, replacing the Lynn one, omitting the bolded
Admitting
sentence.
the bolded sentence.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
And then the IHAM-R, the exemption, the health education exemption procedure, they matched. There was nothing to.
Right. So those are aligned.
Yep. IHAMA, the parental notification. The only difference was, in a lot of our policies, rather than putting the law right in the body of the text, we just say according to the law and then have that as a legal reference. The only difference here was the way that that was expressed. So, up to you.
So this is another area where, we're looking at and working on. I know it has been a topic of discussion in the past, and it really hasn't, no final decisions have been made around it. So I think as a district and as a community, we need to work on this.
Okay.
So I don't know that decisions right now on this policy, I don't know.
You have this policy right now. This is your policy right now.
Yeah.
So do we leave it, and if other revisions need to be made, it's revisited?
So, this really only covers parental notice of health education. It doesn't talk at all about
Oh, right,
the
okay.
content.
Curriculum,
It
just-
just
yeah,
talks
right.
about the parental notice.
I just think we leave it as is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I don't
would
think the
agree.
difference between the reference to the law and the, what Lynn has
Not
is enough to,
significant,
yeah,
yeah.
it's not significant enough to change
Yeah, I
it.
would agree.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
keep the Lynn one there. Okay, so that brings us to IHAMAA dash.
No,
No
no
dash.
dashes.
No dashes,
No
right?
dashes. So this may be the one where you're talking about, you're
This-
still
yes.
working on it, right?
Yeah, the instruction.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
actual instruction of it, right?
Right. To me, this looked like it was a bit dated.
Yeah.
I definitely think that we want to strike this and start over
I agree.
once we
Yeah.
have a new curriculum.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think trying to change this is going to be way more cumbersome than just striking it and writing a new one.
I agree.
I
So at
agree.
this point, just entirely strike it.
Strike it entirely, with the thought of revisiting when our curriculum comes into play.
Yep.
Okay.
And that, I would do the same then with the dash R. It appears, I mean, it appears dated, and it refers to a legal reference that doesn't exist. So,
Okay.
Strike.
So strike that. Okay.
This one is in violation of our actual
was just gonna
practices, so we
say.
should strike that.
We would strike that, right?
so, give out the whole list of initials, IHAMAB is strike it.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So there's too many letters in all these policies. IHAMB, teaching about drug, alcohol, and tobacco. There's a difference in sort of the way it talks about what's taught and the objectives. So I think the direction that you go in that is up to you. But I just note that the MASC policy talks about posting the policy on the district's website and filing a copy with DESI, which is in the regulations. So,
Right. Whereas Lynn one does not have
Right.
those. Right.
Right.
Right. I guess my thought on that would be to make sure that we're following the regulations of
Yeah.
DESI and to have,
I think we
Yeah.
can just replace.
just replace it with the MASC.
Yes.
I also like posting on the website. I think that's, being a little more transparent for families and, that can have access to how we're teaching these things as well.
Yep.
All right, so strike Lynn, adopt MASC for that. Okay.
So IHB, it looked like there were actually two versions of the Lynn policy. And this is not a policy that we have at all. Oh, I'm sorry. There are two versions of the Lynn policy. The one with, you guys don't have color copies, the one that has some highlighting on it, some bright
Yes. Yeah.
highlighting, would be the MASC version. So you have one that doesn't match the MASC version and one that closely matches the MASC version.
Okay. But both versions are Lynn.
Both
versions.
versions, yes.
Okay.
So my inclination would be to say that at some point you updated the Lynn version to the MASC version.
Correct.
And
And
the
didn't
one
remove.
should have been eliminated.
One should have
the
been,
older-
yeah.
The one that just has sort of the list of small group settings and so
Right.
forth, which probably changes as the needs of the student
Correct.
population changes.
Correct. Yeah, so my thought would be I guess it would be hard to word this because it's strike. They're both IHB, but I guess strike the one that is strictly Lynn and keep the one that mirrors more closely to MASC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
IHBA. So IHBA, the MASC version is like about 2 sentences, as opposed to the Lynn version, which is longer. The longer version, it seemed to me, started to build in a lot of procedure, which didn't really belong in policy. So in this case, I would think maybe staying with the shorter version might be preferable.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
I
wonder
would
if-
agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the MASC version clearly talks about requirements of state and federal statutes.
Which is
and
all that matters.
That's all that matters,
Yeah.
is that we're following those statutes.
Yeah, correct.
One quick question though, Dorothy. Under the legal refs, the MASC only has one of the three listed in the Lynn policy. Are the other two, have they been superseded by the one that's listed?
That is a good question. We'll have to check that out.
Okay, just, so the MASC has Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and ours has Education for All Handicapped Children Act of 75, and then Board of Education, Chapter 766, regulations adopted in 74, and then amended through 81. So I just wonder if each of these is relevant, if we would just want to grab that section
Yeah.
and just add it to the bottom of the MASC policy.
I think that's a
Easily do
good
that.
thought. Yeah. It's almost like the more
Yeah,
refer to there, the better off we're going to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
yes. So can we just do that now, or do you think we need to check?
No, I think you can probably just.
Okay.
If it turns out that one of these is superseded or, has
Has been
been rescinded,
Rescinded over the
then
years,
I'll
yeah.
let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
So we keep the we substitute with the MASC version, but we add the legal references from the Lynn to the MASC version.
Okay.
Okay.
So the IHBAA, the Observation of Special Education Programs, this is something that, it's been around, we've had it as a policy for, since 2009. And it came into place when there was a lot of issues around the parents and advocates wanting to be observing and sort of interfering with the educational process. So I know this policy came about with some discussions with the legal folks at DESE. It's a policy that you don't have, you probably do it all, but you don't have a policy around it. So it's more or less up to you if you want to institute the policy, but I think it can be helpful to have as a document to show parents and advocates, this is what needs to happen in terms of observations.
Yeah. Yeah, I would tend to agree. I would think that was give, individual principals as well, the ability to kind of monitor those things a little closer.
And to have something to fall back on.
Could have something to fall back on, exactly. Thank
I
you.
actually like it a lot.
Yeah.
Like I zoned right in on the observer will be asked to submit their report of the observation in advance of any follow-up team meeting. Like that, we've never asked for that. And I think that would be important.
Yeah.
To share with the team. If you're asking to observe, you're asking for a reason or a purpose, right? And so it would be important for the team to know what were your results. So I actually think it's good to have the guidelines of how observations should happen.
I agree. I recommend adoption.
Yes, Member Castellanos.
As we, this is a recommendation that we put forward tonight. I can only imagine that our attorney Greenspan and Attorney Gallo have anticipated this as well to be instituted.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know.
Would we imagine that we have them review this before it gets instituted? Or would that be possible? If it's a new, because just the compliance around special ed is just such a significant realm.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty familiar with it in court. So
Right.
I think it would be important if we could just send that maybe for them as well,
Yeah.
as an added layer.
Yeah.
Not to just, we can institute it. I'm just saying I would like to have our compliance officer and our attorney just review it just for another lens, just to ensure that once we do institute it, that we implement it in
Yeah.
accordance
Yeah.
to policy.
Yeah,
Right. Member Magnolia.
I'm just assuming that if it has been around since 2009, this is a very well vetted policy. Like we're talking, what, I'm doing math, it's,
15 years.
yeah, 15 years, that if MASC was out of compliance with the law, I think we would have.
I'm not saying we're going to be out of compliance. I just would like to see our folks informed of this new implemented policy.
So is there a
Updated.
specific concern that you would have? Because this is about observers, not the delivery of special education. And so, to me, the guiding principle here is anyone in a classroom, and who receives notification of that, like the parental, notification, and also the purpose of the visit, right? So it is of special education programs, but it's not the delivery of curriculum services. We're not talking about what happens to students. We're talking about people in the classroom, right? That's a different threshold. That's what I mean. Like, vetting what happens in programs and to students, to me, is what you're talking about. This is just the physical presence of someone in a classroom.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm actually just more towards the instituting of this policy. I would like to have Attorney Greenspan and our compliance officer just see it.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, no, I'm not totally opposed to that either. I mean, I think you can see both points where this obviously is a fairly vetted policy, but yeah, I don't think it would hurt to have another lens on it.
I will say that we actually, to read through each one, we actually follow this procedure already. We just never had the policy. My guess is when observations were requested, some research was done. They probably, whoever it was found this. The only one that I see that we have not really followed is, and I would actually have to check with the special education department, because I may be wrong in that, but the whole report, providing a report.
Number 9.
For all, I mean, I would have to check, but we may actually ask for a report, and I just aren't aware of it. So to be honest with you, Member Castellanos, we actually follow this. For the most part. So I don't have an issue with Charlie and Howard looking at it, but I say you adopt it, and we can make sure
Oh,
that
absolutely.
Howard and Charlie get a copy, and that they voice any concern that they might have.
I think that's a
Yeah.
wise sequence of events.
Right. So I think
I just wouldn't want to hold up the policy for another set of eyes review when we've had so many sets of eyes on it already.
So I never referenced holding it up.
No,
like
that's,
that.
I just want
said
to make
I would
sure.
like to have Charlie get both attorneys review it as a stipulation of our sequence of moving forward. That's it.
She'll send it to him in an email tomorrow and ask
yeah,
them to respond.
correct. So I would agree. I would say it sounds like adopt it, have the attorneys that need to look at it. Should they have any objections, they'll let us know, and we can revisit if we need to. Is that fair for everybody? Okay.
Ready to move on?
I think so. Yeah, I think we're ready.
So IHBB, this is where I can look at a policy and say, I don't know enough about your district to know if it is current, or if it should be in place, or what to do with it.
So the gifted and talented education, years ago, we had a gifted and talented program. We have not had this program for a number of years for a variety of reasons. Cost, because it required transporting students from other schools to where the program ran. Space. So currently, this program is not present in our district.
Is that phrasing even still used, though?
No, because.
I didn't think so.
No, because the philosophy
Yeah,
is that
has
all
changed.
students are
Yeah.
gifted in some
Correct.
way, and that our responsibility as educators is to differentiate
Right.
Instruction.
based on where they're at. And so someone who is more advanced, you're going to give them an assignment that's going to bring them to a different level than someone who's not ready for that level, right? And so everything is done within the classroom. We don't take them out and separate them.
Right.
Yeah,
I would agree. I think current best practices dictate, exactly what you just described. And I know our teachers are are working hard at,
Yeah.
differentiating their instruction and making sure that they're reaching kids where they're at. So, Member Magnolia, I'm sorry.
Just strike the policy.
Yeah, just strike. Yeah, absolutely.
So the programs for pregnant students, there is a policy in Section J on pregnant students, which I think is more accurate to the law than this policy is. I would recommend deleting this policy. It's number 5 that is the most problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
We do
strike.
not, we do not make kids.
Strike the
Yeah,
policy.
I think we strike, correct.
IHBD is another one where they match.
Okay.
And actually, the purpose of this policy is more to satisfy regulators and auditors who are trying to make sure that you are using the Title I monies appropriately.
Right. Okay.
Bilingual instruction was another one where I think that the policy has moved, has
Old.
bilingual instruction has moved on from this
Yes.
policy.
Yes.
We don't even, LEP isn't
Right.
even used
It's not even
anyway.
a term, right?
Strike, yeah.
So move to strike, yep.
So the same would be true of the -E, which is the
Correct.
following document, and the -R,
Okay.
right, that are the exhibit and the regulations around it. So IHBEA, the MASC version, is, I'm guessing, more current than yours and reflects the current guidance on English learner education. So I would say of the two, that would be the one to adopt or keep.
Yes,
I would
please.
agree.
I would agree, yep.
Keep this one.
Yeah, that's the one we keep.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one.
Lynn
we-
goes away.
Yeah, the
So
one
when we
with
go
the
away,
one
we
with the
adopt
bullets is the one to
MASC.
keep. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where am I?
Homebound instruction,
Homebound instruction.
IHBF.
Yep.
This is a new one.
So this is a new one, and this is homebound instruction, so this is not homeschooling. This is, students who are registered students who can't attend for a certain reason and the obligations around that. I didn't see a policy, a Lynn version of it, so I would think you might want to adopt this policy.
Yes, we do this.
Yep.
But we need the policy in place.
Okay.
When do we?
I actually, as principal at Harrington School, I had a student who was medically fragile, and we have home tutors who service those students, and so the tutor would go to his home, and she would come to the school, get the curriculum materials. She would tutor him. He actually graduated 5th grade from Harrington School before I moved on. And unfortunately, God rest his soul, he has passed. But we do this for any student who is not able to be in school.
I did this for 3 months when I was in college. I was the tutor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done this as well, yep. Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think this is an important one to adopt.
Agree.
Yeah.
So then IHBG, this is home education. This is so homeschooling. And this is one where the Lynn policy is a bit more prescriptive. So I felt like it was another instance where someone from the administration should be weighing in on what the practice and policy, what they felt the practice and policy should be. I did question in the Lynn policy the inclusion of the school committee in certain aspects where I think probably it lies totally in the hand of the administration.
So our wonderful Deb Johnson over there actually oversees, coordinates and communicates with homeschooling families in our in our district. And as previously being the deputy, they would come to me for signature and approval. So we do have a system. We don't bring it to school committee. It is,
School committee voted a few years ago to have the superintendent designee approve it, which the superintendent gave it to the deputy.
Correct.
So is the policy followed for everything with the exception of just that it's now the superintendent's designee? So the home educator chooses the method of assessment, it submits annually, all of these other parts of the policy are followed.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah. So we could just accept the MASC version.
The one part that you might want to look at the MASC version is the last paragraph. A lot of committees will decide to take that paragraph out.
Okay.
In order for a student to get a diploma, a homeschooled student to get a diploma, they have to be registered in the district to take the MCAS.
Yeah.
Which,
We've never done that.
Yeah,
We've
so
never given a diploma.
It's sort of, I think it's in there to sort of say to parents who want the diploma, hey, wait,
Yeah.
you have to register. You can't homeschool if you want the diploma. So you might want to take that paragraph out.
We also don't allow them to participate in extracurricular or curricular activities. The paragraph above.
So both bold paragraphs would
So
need to
both-
be removed.
Yep.
Okay.
So the MASC version without the bolded paragraphs is what you're,
Correct.
Sounds like that's where we're leaning. Okay.
and then dash E was the homeschooling. It looked to me like it was pieces of the summary of the court case, and as an exhibit, and I really don't think you need to have it in the policy manual.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. So strike dash E, IHBG dash E.
And that's a long one.
It is a long one. Yeah, we're flipping a few pages here. Yep.
I guess summarizing a court case takes a
Yeah.
lot of space.
And then dash R, this is MASC. And if you might want to look at it because you took the MASC of the umbrella policy, you might want to look at the dash R, or you might decide that you don't want it. It can be some helpful guidance to parents who are looking at homeschooling, just to know what they need to be prepared.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if a parent does decide to homeschool, I would think we'd want something in place that we can refer to and they can lean on as well.
Just a quick question. Does the district make a provision for inclusion of home-taught children in annual achievement test battery?
No.
Okay, I think
No.
we'd need to strike that
We need to
language
strike
then.
that language, yeah.
Can you just quickly tell me where you're looking?
Yeah, just
I'm
for the
in,
record.
okay, so I'm in 3.
For 3, yeah.
Okay.
Parents or a legal guardian in charge of home instruction should make provision for regular testing or use of other indicators of student progress, such as standardized achievement tests. And then we would need to strike the next sentence, which is, as an alternative to home testing and at the request of those in charge of the home instruction, the school district will make provision.
Hold on. I just want a clarifying question. So we do require the parents to have assessments of the child's progress,
Which is the first sentence, absolutely.
but we don't offer like them to come into our schools and
Exactly.
take okay.
Which is why we strike the second,
Yeah.
but then
You're
remain
right.
for the
Okay.
third, which is the home instruction summary form must include, and we need to change the language,
Yeah,
a summary
okay.
of home testing results.
Yes.
Sorry, Member Magnolia.
Well, no, if we're gonna do that, do I need to reread it for Mary or somebody?
Oh, I got
You
it.
got it? Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Go ahead.
It's
Yeah.
Just
So
one quick
then
question.
you're gonna have a period sooner than the end of that last sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was about to ask, right?
The home instruction summary form must include either a summary of home testing results for each required subject for each child. So we don't want the either or.
No, we don't
don't
want,
want-
yeah.
No.
Must include a summary of home testing results for each required subject for each child, period.
Period.
Yes.
Yep.
So, okay, your question, Mary?
I'm good now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just a clarifying question, Superintendent Ruggiero. The tests that they would have to take, are those approved by the district, or those are state approved, correct? Or-
They're not, I don't know that they're state approved.
Okay.
A lot of them use like an online
Okay.
learning
Okay.
platform. So like, similar to like Teka or
Right,
something like
right,
that.
okay.
Which has assessments built in.
Okay.
And they will provide us with the documentation of those tests. But we don't approve them, we just expect that they are assessing.
Okay.
And we do review that data when it is turned in.
Okay,
But
thank you.
I do have a question, because I don't know that I've done this. On C, number 4C, the superintendent will prepare an annual summary of children included in home instruction. That's consistent in all districts that the superintendents do that?
I would say probably not.
Because I was going to say, I don't know that in my 38 years,
Yeah.
have ever heard.
So
say that's
we'll just
probably
strike
not.
C then.
Strike C, right? I mean, I would think the percentage is low, where maybe would the school committee even need to?
Well, I think after the pandemic, I think everything changed. And
correct.
so I think that what might have been a trickle is a little bit more cumbersome now.
Okay.
It seems to be, Deb, would you say it seems to be going back to where it was? No?
It's iffy. This week, I just got 3 families that want to homeschool, this week.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In my just casual experience, it's much higher numbers than before the pandemic.
Yeah, no, it definitely is higher than before the
Yeah,
pandemic.
just because we often see students who are coming to us like around age 15 or 16 to establish an academic record who are homeschooled. And I am seeing many more of those students than I ever have before.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Member Castellanos.
Sorry if you guys know this answer to this, but the funding for homeschooling, do we provide, so how does that work?
You're basically not enrolled in the Lynn Public Schools.
Okay.
By law, they're able to homeschool, and they do have to show that they are homeschooling, like that's why there's documents.
That's
and-
why I was asking.
Yeah.
I was wondering if
They
it's
ha-
very rigorous.
Because it's a law
to
that kids
yeah.
have to be in school.
Okay.
But they're technically not Lynn Public School students. They're not counted in our enrollment, but they have to answer to someone, and because they live in our city, they have to produce to us that they are educating their children.
And when they graduate, I might have missed this, they don't get a Lynn Public
do
Schools
not get a
diploma,
Lynn-
they get
no.
They
a,
don't get a diploma.
They don't get a
Okay.
diploma.
So that's why a lot of times they will come to us to establish an academic
Yeah.
record. Because they have nothing to show potential four-year schools, that
Right.
they have academic credentials.
Right. And I think what you just mentioned too would be more reason to strike C, that they're not actually
Right.
Lynn Public
That
School
was why I
students.
was
Right,
asking that.
yeah, right, which I wasn't aware of, so thank you.
What about number 2?
I think we might.
Oh, yeah, no, we don't do that either. Allowing them to be part-time.
To kind of go back, it's almost like,
You
lets them
can't
go
do,
back and
it's one
forth
or the
almost,
other.
yeah,
You're either
right.
enrolled in Lynn Public Schools and, learning through our schools, or you're homeschooling. You can't have a combination.
Right. So we're saying strike 2 as well, okay.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, are there any activities, academics, anything that homeschooled students are able to attend? Like, can they be in a play?
No.
Okay, they can't do any sports, nothing. Okay.
I will say, when parents share their documentation, many of the binders, the documentation will talk about things that they do with their children, going to museums, doing a science thing at the beach, like, it will describe activities and experiences that the parents do to broaden their enrichment of learning and in the world. But we don't, they can't take any of our things.
Right.
Okay.
So again, just for clarification of the record, accept MASC version of IHBG-R, but strike number 2 and strike C under 4.
And make a change to
Make a
number
change
3.
to number 3.
And make the change to number 3, correct. Thank you. Thank you. Good with that, Mary? Okay. Any other thoughts on that? All right.
So ignore IHBGA on my template. I forgot to take it out.
Okay.
You don't have it, we don't have it. So the next one is IHBH. There were just some minor wording differences. I think we've talked about this before. In our model reference manual, we're trying to, district applies every place, system doesn't apply every place, so we just are changing that word. And we have a couple of additional updates to the legal references. So you might want to at least update the legal references.
That's not a problem.
Yeah, I think that's important, right?
And it's consistent, right, to put district?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we've been doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Magnet schools was another one that is yours.
Also goes back a long
Yeah,
time
goes back
ago.
a
Yeah, that's a,
We are no longer a magnet, we don't have
Yeah.
magnet schools. I believe magnet schools still exist, and with the new superintendent, I can't speak for her. I don't know if there's any thoughts around bringing them back, but this is in reference to us having magnet schools in the
Well,
past.
and I think that, this is a case where whether you have the policy or not, if the law allows it, you're going to be able to do it.
Right.
So it's really, in some ways, superfluous to
Right.
have the policy if it's not active.
so strike,
Strike.
strike, correct. IHB.
Yeah. So IHB.
H-E.
HE. HE. So this policy, this is something that a lot of districts were looking for, something like this during the pandemic.
Right.
If it's not something that you have adopted at this point, I wouldn't rush to adopt it. So you might just want to pass over this one.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so here's my only question because of, we have some very old buildings in the city, and we've had some issues with some of the old buildings. If we had a catastrophic flood in a building, would we want a policy like this in place? Because we don't have anywhere to put those students if we don't have a policy in place. It's not like, oh, we had a catastrophic flood in this building, and so we can just send them over here there's just literally no place to put them. So if we don't have a policy in place that at least gives us something to fall back on should something happen, I would just be nervous.
We still, though, would need to have the
You're still-
Department of Education approval, because as of right now,
It's
remote
not.
learning is not a approved learning
Yeah.
venue. So
They've taken it off the table. No.
it doesn't count as educational learning time.
But which would come first? Would we need the policy in place and then get approval, or vice versa?
I would say we would need Department of Ed approval first.
Okay, then don't worry
I
about
don't
it.
think a policy supersedes
No.
and Dorothy, you
Right.
can
No, no.
correct me,
Right.
but it doesn't supersede the state's
Right.
requirements.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, the state may say, okay, you have a school building that, is a safety hazard, like there's some kind of structural something that happened that you can't be in the building. I would assume they would approve for us to do some kind of remote learning, which, I don't know. So then it's a discussion around, do you feel you need the policy in order to get that done?
Yeah, well, yeah, and, I would say prior to the pandemic, if a school had a roof collapse or a fire, or they would have to have an emergency meeting and figure out what to do with
Right.
those kids as quickly as possible. And it might not have been a school building. It might.
Right.
Right,
Or it could have been double sessions.
right.
Right? Like that, one group of kids is in the building for the first half of the day, and then they go home, and then another group comes. There's double sessions that can happen.
So,
So
not adoption.
Thought is, move past it,
Yep.
not adopt it,
Okay.
correct.
And DASHE is, it was never intended to be a policy. It was intended during the time when everyone was going, what do we do, to give a little
Right.
direction. So
Right,
we'll just pass right by that one, too.
okay. So that brings us to IHC.
This, to me, looked more like a list than a policy. And the programs that are listed could actually all be in place without a policy that says you have them, so.
Yeah,
Well, we don't have driver's education.
yeah, so I guess strike that, IHB, okay.
Yep.
Or, I'm sorry, IHC,
C.
IHC.
Yep.
I said B and I had to look again. Yeah, it's a lot, it's a lot.
Your eyes start to cross after a while.
Yeah, the eyes do cross, they do.
So the first two sections, the IHCA, it's the summer school, there's a Lynn version and an MASC version. It looked to me like the first couple sections of the Lynn version seemed to be more policy, and then everything below that looked like procedure. So I,
And they're naming a program in it, which we actually don't use anymore. We use a different program, and rule of thumb is never name a program. It should have just been like, on-site to supplement the digital curriculum and stop there, or an approved digital platform, something that is more generalized.
so do you want to keep the top of the Lynn policy or look at the MASC policy?
Well, I think even the Lynn policy, it doesn't mention elementary, and we do now have summer elementary
We
programs,
do.
so. Maybe we just adopt MASC.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think it gives us a little more room to do different things too, right?
Is there a need to, so that last line, all summer programs will be subject to annual approval by school committee. In my head, I'm thinking, and budgetary
That's
ability.
about that time,
right?
yeah.
Like, so sometimes the budget doesn't allow for everyone to have a summer program, right?
So in my head, some of that approval was the budgetary approval, so.
Because the school
Oh,
committee
yeah.
approves the budget.
Good point.
Right.
Okay. So that covers that.
Yeah,
I'm guessing IHCC is a policy you don't want to keep. Generally, any policy, anything that would be only at one level that would be handled by a program of studies or a handbook at that level, we don't have in the policy manual. The policy manual's for everybody.
The whole district.
So things that, I think there may be a couple things in here that seem to refer just to the high school. I wouldn't have them in the policy manual.
So we're striking that.
Yeah.
you're right.
Okay.
So again, just to be clear, that wouldn't mean that obviously the high schools can't offer these things. It's just,
course.
right,
Right.
right,
It
okay.
just- it
Just to
just-
be clear, right,
yeah.
right. So strike IHCC, okay.
Yep. IHCF, you tell me what you want to do with it. It doesn't not look like there's an apparent reason for this document.
Yeah.
It's also worded extremely awkwardly, I just want to say, as an English professor. It's like 14 negatives in a row.
Right.
Someone was upset this day.
Yeah, you're right.
I think strike it.
So, yeah, I think we strike that. So IHCF, strike.
So
So there's just IJ.
J. So interestingly, it looked to me like there was a bit of a different approach in the two versions of this policy, because the IJ instructional materials in the MASC version focused on like classroom instruction materials, and IJ in the Lynn version looked like it was all about the library media center.
Library media, yeah.
We covered library media separately in further on policies, and you actually do too, in your library materials selection and adoption policy.
Yeah, so I would think the MASC version is more along the lines of what we'd like.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll adopt MASC there for IJ. All right, IJ-R.
Reconsideration of instructional material, the two, other than a coding difference, the two matched,
Okay.
the reconsideration. See, I -1.
IJ
So, yeah, I mean, it was, to
-R-1.
me, it was the same issue as the IJ,
Right.
that it really, I think it's covered further on in the IJL, so I don't think you need this one.
So strike IJ-R-1.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. IJ, so IJI kind of goes back to the MASC IJ that we just talked about, because at one point, we had textbook and instructional materials and felt like in the world today, there's more often that instructional materials could include textbooks. And so we sort of melded it into one and didn't have the separate textbook one. So it really is covered. This Lynn policy IJI is really, the content is covered in IJ.
Which we
The MASC
previously,
IJ
right,
that we just talked about.
which we just talked about.
So strike.
Did I just talk around in so much circles that I didn't make sense?
That's okay.
We
No, it's
followed
all
you.
right. We followed you.
All right.
We got you.
Policy clinic.
So again, so we're striking Lynn IJ.
I.
Right, okay,
And the same would be true then of IJJ.
okay.
Because, yeah.
Because then that's covered in
Yeah.
the one we,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
hope to adopt, right.
Right. And then IJL, getting back to library materials, the two versions actually matched.
Okay.
All right. Love when they match.
I think that's like the third time that's
Yeah, I
happened.
know,
The whole policy manual.
I know.
So library materials selection and adoption, if you look at IJLA, which in IJLA, the two policies matched. IJL-R, all the material in IJL-R is covered in IJLA.
Yes. So strike IJL-R?
Yes.
Okay. And then IJLA as well? Oh, no, those two
Oh,
versions
the
match.
two versions
Those
match.
match.
Again.
Those match again,
Yes.
right?
Just look at that.
Okay.
Can I just add, I'm so happy to have a weeding part because this is so contentious often
Yeah.
when they weed materials. I know at least for my place, faculty flip out. So I don't know if
Take our-
teachers flip out.
We
but-
do, yeah, take our books.
Yeah, when you see books there, and it's like, no, we really don't need them anymore, I
Oh.
promise.
Mr. Dugan's classroom library needs some updating, sorry, yeah.
Books that haven't been checked out in over 20 years.
Yeah, it's tough,
Yeah.
it's tough.
So IJM is a policy that we don't have, MASC does not have a version of this. So I didn't know how you might feel about it. We do have in section K, a policy about advertising, which if you wanted to say that this was sort of fell into that, then we'll cover that in section K.
I don't see any reason to remove it.
I don't see any reason to move it either, I don't think it hurts to have it,
Yep, okay.
so, okay.
Got it. So the IJND and the ones that follow are another area where I feel like you may want a weigh-in from your tech people
Okay.
and so forth. They're all the policies about digital resources. We look at sort of IJND as sort of the umbrella policy, and the others fall under that. I felt like there was more specificity and more overlap in some of the Lynn policies. There seemed to be a lot of overlap of content in the policies that followed. So this might be an area where we want to take a step back and look at the set a
Right.
little bit more separately than just quickly going all through them tonight,
Right,
with whoever the right people in the district are to say, this is how it works, this is how we want it to work.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it
That's it.
does. And with Lynn being a one-to-one device right now, the budget impact of that is being looked at as well. And so I think with the new internet and device policy that was created,
Yep.
and I agree, I think we need to pull, the compliance officer, the IT
Yep.
department, to pull a subcommittee together to look at all of it and make any adjustments that need to be made.
Okay.
So that would include IJND through IJNDC.
Okay,
So all the ones that start with IJND.
okay.
Yep.
Right.
And then is that something where I should maybe get in touch with Charlie about?
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
because he was a major piece of getting that internet policy going.
Yes, yeah, he was, that was,
So he would be the right person.
Okay, I can,
yeah, Charlie worked really hard on
I'll
that,
shoot him
so,
an
yeah,
email.
absolutely.
and-
Okay, so that brings us to IJOA. Well, actually,
Yep.
let me back up just a moment.
Yep,
So I guess again, just for the record, hold off on IJND through IJNDC.
IJNDD, do you want to?
Yeah.
DD.
I would
That's
include
social
DD.
media.
Yeah.
Oh, that's, right, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll table that for a moment until we get the correct people with us.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then that brings us to IJOA.
Yep, field
Okay,
trips.
let me just get that.
Yep. So this is the IJOA, the Lynn version was more prescriptive than the MASC version. I was a little bit puzzled in the Lynn version with the 350-mile designation because that brings you out of state.
Correct.
And out-of-state field trips should be approved by the school committee, but, so,
So the thought would be to adopt the
that would be my thought, but.
yeah, MASC. Yeah,
So
Everybody
looking
okay
at
with that?
Superintendent Ruggiero and making sure she's okay
No,
with that.
I 100% agree.
All right, so strike Lynn, IJOA, and adopt MASC, IJOA-R. Okay.
Oh, no.
No, I'm sorry,
Oh,
IJOA.
no dash.
No dash.
No dash.
No dash.
Now there's a dash off.
Now there's a dash.
Yep. I think if you're taking if you're taking MASC's IJOA, then IJOA-R seemed to me a lot of procedure
Yeah,
that I would take out.
okay. So strike IJOA-R, all
Yeah.
right.
IJOB, community resources or community resource persons or speakers, essentially covered the same content with different wording. So I don't know if there's a compelling reason to change to the MASC version there. I would add the cross-reference, the MASC cross-reference.
The only thing I don't like is that the Lynn one says the school committee will allow the recruitment of such people. I don't know that we have anything to do with this.
Could just go with the MASC version then.
If we could, I think we should just go with the MAC version.
Yeah, I agree. Almost would make it too cumbersome to
Yeah,
even do it, right?
well, just to revise it,
Yeah.
yeah.
School volunteers, I guess I would go with the MASC version here too, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
MASC.
I agree.
Are we doing that now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so go with the IJOC,
Yeah.
MASC version, okay.
Yes. IK was another one where in reading through, there were, where am I? Okay.
Procedures.
Worded differently, but covering much the same material.
Yes.
so.
So it would be just a matter of which wording we like.
Yeah, the Lynn
Or you
one
can,
feels,
or you can pick and choose and combine it.
Yeah, or combined, correct.
but the Lynn one has, it's very procedural. It,
In terms of the number of times a year and,
yeah.
yeah.
Even just the
And I
list
will
itself,
say,
right?
there's a lot of districts that are still updating families on student progress, but it's not prescriptive that, like, they get a progress report. They're getting away from just giving a family a document
Yep.
versus having the conference and the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So even within our own district, there's lots of talk around, do we really need progress reports anymore?
Yeah.
And so we haven't made decisions, so we should have something in place. But I personally think getting away from that prescriptive number of times a year and all of that is probably the best way to go.
Also, it's, we'd have to change all the gendered language in it if we kept ours. This way, we just get rid of the gendered language. So that makes it a little easier.
So MASC version?
MASC.
So the MASC version, right? So IK, MASC version.
IKA looks like it goes back to the 70s. I would get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still has A, B, C, D, E, F, A, B, C, D, E, F, right?
Yeah,
We're standards based,
yeah, we're, some of our report cards are already standards-based, and we're working towards going, expanding that.
Right, right.
Strike.
So that would be, yeah, we no longer do that, strike. So IKAB.
I felt like this fell into the same category.
Yeah,
Yes. Strike.
Yep.
okay.
So MASC actually does not have a homework policy.
It's another area.
There's another one, yeah, I mean, a lot of the research is pointing towards elementary students maybe not even needing homework,
Yep,
so,
yep.
yeah.
So this was one where I felt like there should be some administrator weigh-in on the policy and the direction to go.
I agree. I mean, I even look at, and I remember telling my teachers and my parents
Yeah.
those timelines
Right.
of how much time per night, and I think it's a very old way of thinking about learning and application of skills, and really should be revisited.
So do you want to take it out at this point, or totally, or revisit it?
There,
or-
well, the thing is that it's so prescriptive that I don't know how we would rewrite a policy on homework that is not prescriptive because it's homework. Unless we just say, I don't know, it's at the discretion
At
of
the
the
s-
teacher.
That's exactly what I was just
That's
about to
the only
say.
Could it be a general stroke that way?
Yeah, could we, was that reasonable to say that it, homework's at discretion of the educator?
Why, do we need a policy that says that?
I know.
I don't know. I don't think so. So what's the thought, just strike it completely?
Dorothy, have you ever seen in
Yeah.
other districts homework policies?
I've seen other ones. I've not seen ones as extensive as this, but I think generally, if we looked at a lot of them now, people would look at it and say exactly what you said at the beginning. That, the idea of homework is changing, and I know we've never had a policy on homework because there is a feeling like it is so specific to a grade level, specific to a philosophy of a district, that we never wanted to have a model policy on it, so. The only reason that I could think that, I'm sort of brainstorming out loud here, is if it's up to the teacher and there's a feeling that the teacher is going overboard, is there something to fall back on to say, this is the
That you
the
can't
overall,
exceed a certain,
Yeah.
not even to exceed, but, this is, stop it, this is why we have homework.
Yeah,
And-
maybe just explain the rationale behind
Yeah.
it if we're gonna keep it.
Yep.
Yep.
So I might suggest that we start from scratch and come up with something that really is a philosophy
Yeah.
of the district with regards to homework. I don't know that this committee should write that. I think that needs to come from, the folks.
yeah.
Yeah, the folks who
I
do it.
will say, at the district level, we are actively talking about a staff handbook, right? A district-wide staff handbook. Currently, individual schools have handbooks. I had one in the schools that I supervised. We need to calibrate and make it consistent across the district. And so homework could be part of that kind of document, that kind of procedural manual, so to say. And, each department is going to have a voice in this handbook. And so curriculum, this would, I feel like, would fall under the curriculum department and would be part of what they would develop. And certainly when that handbook is created, it would be shared with the school committee for you all to see. But I question whether this isn't necessarily a policy, but becomes procedural as part of a handbook.
Well, I think, though, there might be a role for an articulation as a district, how we approach the concept of homework.
Okay.
And so I think when we think of policy, right, these are what we
So we think of policy as the what and the why.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so why is this our approach to homework? You know, what is, so if it is at the discretion of the teacher,
Yeah.
right, not to exceed whatever, like, let's just say not to exceed an hour a day, why?
Or even if it doesn't even have a time limit, right?
No, I'm just saying,
This is the purpose of homework.
yeah, this is
right?
and it should be consistent with, you know,
Yeah.
educational goals.
And I would think that that philosophy would sort of come from the administrators.
Yeah.
And then as a recommended policy to,
And I think,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
a couple sentences is
Yep, yep.
probably enough.
I agree.
But I do think we should strike this in the meantime, and then we can adopt a new policy as soon as it's created.
okay.
Okay, so again, just so we're clear, we're striking IKB, but we will revisit as a philosophy comes from administration. Okay. Thank you.
IKC was another one that I think should be stricken. At the very least, it only applies to high school, so it doesn't belong in the policy manual.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know anything about this with a senior.
Yeah, this one, at times breaks my heart. As someone who was a very average student growing up and never took an honors class in my life, but obviously am successful as an adult. I worry about the pressures, the stress, the anxiety we put on our kids to be, the highest performing in the class. I just, that's a personal, I will admit, that's a personal feeling I have on it. It's not that I don't see value in class rankings for students. I know colleges value class rankings.
They absolutely do.
Well, and there are districts that have, and high schools that have eliminated them too,
Yeah.
so.
I just think it pits kids against each other.
Well, and I would also add to this, I went to a high school in which a number of seniors took pass-fail classes so as not to ruin their GPA because of how many AP classes they took. And so the top 10% of my graduating class, of them, so there's 365 students in my graduating class, and so the top 36 students, of them, we were on a 5-point scale, all of us, because I was one of them, had over a 5.0. So how accurate is a class ranking in that situation?
Right.
Because your AP classes got you over the GPA scale. And so really what it is it's gaming a system.
Right.
It's not an actual ranking.
Correct.
And so, this is the inverse of what you're talking about, right? Like, how can I take pottery so that I can not affect my GPA, not how well am I performing?
The other thing that I would note on this particular policy, college classes are only given 4 points.
Yeah.
Whereas the advanced placement and honors are actually higher than
than
the
that.
college classes,
Yeah.
which I personally struggle with as well. Like, what message is that? We're saying that college classes are not as valuable or as high scoring as an AP,
An AP
or
class.
Or that taking a business class is,
right.
yeah.
It's going against kind of the philosophy as a district where,
Yeah.
pathways, vocations,
Yep.
certificate programs, ways that you can become an active, working citizen. There's many different pathways to take, and putting a number on it, it just doesn't feel right.
I don't disagree with anything that we're saying. My only concern would be if we strike this completely, does it get rid of the traditional valedictorian, salutatorian?
No, because typically this is not a policy. Typically,
Okay.
this would be something in a high school program of studies or handbook and would not be at the policy
Okay.
level.
Oh, then
Okay.
strike it.
Yep, yep.
So are we certain that this is in classical English?
Oh,
tech?
yeah.
Okay,
I follow
okay.
this.
I figured, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so strike it in the thought that these are in the high school handbooks in order to keep
Yep.
the traditional graduation.
Their procedures.
Right, right.
And I'm going to say the same thing about IKD.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Yes. In the same line of thought, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. IKE, another one that matched.
Haha.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's in the MCAS.
IKE
Are.
R.
Dash R.
Dash
This
R.
looked dated to me. It didn't, I made a goof there. It doesn't mention passing the MCAS. It refers to a title that I don't think I've ever heard you talk about before, which is the Associate Superintendent for
Right, it's
Educational
deputy.
Development.
It's, right, correct. We don't have that. We
Do
don't
not.
have that
We
position.
do not.
So,
Apparently they did at one point, but.
yeah.
But then IKE
Dash E.
Dash E.
dash E does deal with some of these things. So if we strike the IKE dash R, we might cover it with IKE dash E.
I don't think you want, I would question if IKE dash E, first of all, it has some of the same language, but second of all, is it in place?
That they need
it-
100 credits to graduate?
That you wouldn't hold a child, you wouldn't have a student retained in the same class for more than 2 years, does it?
We try to follow that because
do?
of the
Okay.
age, what
Mhm.
happens with age beyond that. Like if you, we actually try to stick to once if needed,
Yeah.
because then as they get older, the age impacts.
So just to get back to IKR, are we saying, IKE dash R, excuse
Yeah.
me? Are we saying strike that? I don't know if we ever came to a decision on that one.
I guess my inclination would be to say that it may be dated, but
Yeah.
I'm going to defer to Superintendent Ruggiero on that.
Yeah. It's definitely dated because it doesn't refer at all to MCAS.
No.
It also, I don't see in it Mass Core.
I didn't see it either.
So I would say that we would strike it. It also, again, could be part of the program of studies, like that it talks about what you need in order to graduate. And maybe it's a simpler, again, philosophy of promotion requirement.
Yeah, I wonder if we should strike this as it is, but like the other one, if there's a philosophy of grade promotion that the district espouses, what should replace it is the philosophy about grade promotion. However, it is entirely possible that we could rewrite IKE-E to include that promotion and retention.
So you've got IKE, which is promotion and retention. So do you,
Oh, right.
right?
Right.
So is that broad enough to cover, or is there pieces to incorporate just into IKE without having the 3 separate documents?
And it does talk about results of teacher-made tests and other measures of skill and content mastery,
Yeah.
standardized test results, and other observations of
I
student
think
performance.
IKE covers
Kind of
both of
covers
them.
both
Yeah.
of these,
Yeah,
right?
you're right. I think we strike IKER and IKEE.
Right. I agree. I think IKE does. And that was one of the matching ones.
It was,
Oh, there you
that's
go.
why.
Right.
I didn't read it closely enough.
Okay, so the thought is strike IKE-R. Strike, I'm sorry, make it to that paper, IKE-E.
Yes.
Okay, and the thought is IKE covers those.
Correct.
Okay.
So IKF looked somewhat dated to me. There are places that decide, because this is in the high school handbook or program of studies, which is approved by the school committee, that it does not need to reside in both places. It can just be in the high school document and does not need to be in policy. If you do that, then you don't have to worry about the fact that you have to make sure that they consistently have to make sure that they match.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I would agree with that.
So strike IKFC. Oh, no, I'm
No,
sorry,
just
IKF.
IKF.
IKF, correct. I'm jumping the gun a bit there, yeah.
So can I ask I agree.
yeah.
It's my understanding that in Lynn, we require our students 25 credits per year for a total of 100, but that other districts don't necessarily require the 25 per year, which allows for seniors who have accumulated all of the credits they need to graduate could actually go and do an internship or work because they've completed all their requirements
Right.
and then they just come back for graduation. Is that, am I incorrect on that?
I don't believe you're incorrect.
So I think that's where this, I believe that's where this policy may be different, is that the school committee who made this decision or made this policy at the time, it was the minimum of 100 credits in 4 years, 25 each year.
So should the policy just say that?
I don't know, is that what you feel it should be? I guess is the real question there. It can stay that way and students still could do internships, right? They would just get credit
They get
for
credit
those
for it, yeah.
internships. But I remember the reason it came up was because I remember a conversation with someone whose child is in a different district, and their senior was done, had accumulated all their credits that they needed, and didn't need to continue going to school and started doing work or, was doing kind of pathway stuff because they were already set with their requirements.
So you're asking a much bigger question
is a
than
much
just the
bigger
That's
policy.
the big one.
I did high school in 3 years because I took so many high school classes as in junior high that I had enough credits to graduate after 3. So, yeah.
I mean, it is a much bigger conversation.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to bring to
Well, and I
light
think-
that is a piece, I think that's why this policy is here,
Yep.
was because it was about the credit.
It's
Yeah,
about the credits.
Well, and I mean, there's things like, it says, Lynn Tech requires 105 total, and it doesn't reflect, I mean, to me, I've heard you talk about the early college program. There's
Right,
nothing in
correct.
here that reflects the
Right.
early college program, and there's,
But to your point, Dorothy, something like this could be in the high school documents,
Yep.
right? Around
Yes.
Mass Core and around program of study and pathways, right? It
Yep.
could be included in that.
Well, it could, but I think what you're raising is a kind of philosophical question about that as a policy that affects who can graduate, right? Because if they haven't done that, and I think that's, I know
but,
where the,
but do you approve either the high school handbook that has this in it, or the program of studies that has this in it? Because that gives,
No.
okay, then
Program
you
of
do need
studies
it as a policy. That's the question.
Yeah.
If it resides in a high school document that you approve every year, that gives that essentially
The weight,
policy,
yeah.
right?
You're
But
right.
if you don't, then you do need it as a policy, because the school committee should be setting the graduation
Absolutely.
requirements.
Absolutely.
And in my head, I'm thinking of the new superintendent,
Yes.
right? And what her visions may be, and I don't want to interfere with
yeah.
potential visions that she may have on pathways that our schools may take.
So, Member Dugan?
Yeah,
I-
so-
I might recommend that we need to take this up with the whole committee.
I agree. I think this is, I mean, graduation requirements is a big one. I think we do need input from the whole committee on this,
Yeah,
rather than us just deciding.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing.
totally
The
agree.
two of us, or Member
Three of
Castellanos as well. Yeah, three of us.
I'm in the policy clinic right now. Refresher.
So I guess what I would recommend would be leave it for now, revisit it as a whole committee, get it on agenda as an agenda item on a whole committee meeting. Does that make sense? Okay.
Well, I think what I would have to do is make a motion to move this to the whole committee
Okay.
for discussion.
Okay. Second then. Roll call.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
Okay.
So in my notes, I'm going to put this as a hold for discussion with the full committee.
Correct. When we can get it on the agenda, we will do that. Okay. Thank you, Member Magnolia.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one, where is my list here? Graduation exercises, generally, this is considered to be in the hands of the high school, not at the policy level. I would take it out of the policy manual.
Yeah, I agree. So that would be strike IKFB.
Yeah.
I thought the high schools handle that.
And IKFC, I would also take out.
Agreed? Okay, so strike IKFC.
Yeah. Which brings us to IL. Guess what? They match again.
Woohoo!
All right.
This was not happening before. This is
No,
very
this is-
exciting.
Well, see, when you have a policy section that's about 3
Yes.
inches
This
thick,
is a big one. That is a
you
thick
run
one.
across a few more of
You
those.
did. You did.
My pen. Okay.
This to me, testing programs look to me like another one that is dated. It referred to 79 and 85. I think it probably should come out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it says needed information decision maker school committee. Yeah, it is dated.
Looks like it predates MCAS.
It is
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We do have MCAS data we look at. We look at district data, so.
Yep.
Okay. So strike ILA.
Yep.
That's a
And
thought, okay.
ILBA seem to me to be the same. Predating MCAS, it looks, it's talking about looking at finding data from other comparative districts. Well, the state does all that for you now.
State does that. Mhm. Okay, so strike ILBA.
Yeah.
All right.
This ILBA-E also looked to me like it predated the curriculum frameworks and seemed to be more procedure rather than policy, so I would take it out as well.
Strike.
Yeah, I agree. I think the state kind of covers that for us now. So strike ILBA
Yeah.
-E. Okay.
ILD, this is a policy that is an MASC version. There is no equivalent Lynn version. It's around surveys and research and the sort of the rights and process around participating in surveys and research because you receive money from the federal government.
So adopt.
So I think it would be a good one to adopt.
Okay. So adopt ILD. All right.
Yep. You okay with that one, Superintendent Rashid?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
IMA, did I skip one? That matched. IMA matched, teaching activities and presentations.
Those playing along at home, we have another match.
Because,
I'd actually get through the whole section tonight.
fine
too.
citizens of Lynn
Yeah.
are just following with riveted attention.
IMA-R, it's a document, it seems to be a quote from a law that's been repealed,
Yeah,
from what
so
I could find in
strike.
my research.
Right, so that would be strike IMA-R.
Yes.
Okay.
So IMB, the two policies took a little bit of a different approach or viewpoint. The MASC version provides a little more direction as guidance to teachers in teaching about controversial subjects, and in the Lynn version focuses more on the student's right to learn about controversial issues. So there may be a melding there, or there may be a preference in the way you go.
I mean, I personally like the MASC because it does give our teachers rights, to introduce controversial issues, as stated in 2, approach the discussion, ensure reasoned arguments. So I think those are all very important things for our teachers to have in place.
It gives rights, and it gives a little guidance.
It gives some guidance as well, yeah.
Sort of,
And I think especially the requests from groups or individuals outside the schools, oh boy, do we need that.
Mm-hmm.
And it highlights student voice. I like the student-initiated forums and.
Yeah, absolutely.
so go with
So
MASC.
sounds like we're just, adopt the MASC version of IMB. Okay.
Had another match with IMD, School Ceremonies and Observances. IMDB, makes me think of an internet site. This is a Lynn policy only, so whether or not you wanted to include it is at your discretion.
I think we keep it.
Yeah, I would say we keep that.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the last policy in the section, drum roll please. There was an additional legal reference in the MASC version, but other than that, they matched.
Okay.
Okay, just include the additional legal
Yep.
reference.
Include the additional, legal reference from MASC, excuse me. Animals in school.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
No,
Of course.
Animals in school, therapy dogs. I know it has a section on service animals.
Yep. So I'll give you a
Therapy dogs are
preview.
different.
Therapy dogs are different, yes. But in this, it does allow the principal, it does allow the principal to give permission for animals to be in the school.
Okay.
If I can quickly find,
So the reason I'm asking,
yep,
so we have currently a middle school that has 2 therapy dogs.
Yeah.
As part of the district attorney's program, for the Breed All-Stars.
yep,
I have another school who's asking for a therapy dog. There's a staff member who owns one, so they're not looking for us to pay for the dog or
Yep.
pay for the training. It's a staff member's service, therapy dog that she would bring in.
yep. So I'll give you a sneak preview that we are actually going to be looking at this policy and probably breaking it up into a couple policies.
Okay.
One that just addresses service dogs and ones that, and I can also, if you would like, I know that there are districts that have specific policies around therapy dogs, and I'm thinking of one district in particular that it's the same situation that you talk about, that the staff member owns the dog, and it has some sort of parameters around being specific that the staff member owns it and is responsible for it,
Yeah.
and so forth.
Okay.
So if you want me to.
I would really be interested in that. I know a
can
lot
find
of
out for
people
you.
are interested in it. I know
Yep.
myself, I'm a dog owner. I get the appeal of
Yep.
having it.
Yep.
I've seen it in action at Breed. It has made a huge difference for many students. And so if we're able to do it, I would want to
Yep.
try and do it, but
I would be
I didn't
happy
have
to-
the language or the policy
Yeah.
to support it.
No, I can do some research for you. and-
That'd be
be
great.
great.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
I do actually have one question too about the student health. So it says, No animal, page 1 of 3, under student health. No animals may be brought to school or kept in the school, classroom, office, or common area that may negatively impact the health of any student who must utilize that area. So with the therapy dogs, how do we
So I know
make sure
at
kids aren't
Breed,
allergic? Yeah.
the therapy dogs are with their owner.
Okay.
So one of the owners is a guidance counselor.
Okay.
And so the dog's name is Stella. Stella is with that guidance
Okay.
counselor at all times in her office. There's a crate, like they, the
Yeah,
dog
yeah.
gets crated when, they're not just out roaming.
Okay, okay.
And I believe, I'm going to have to verify this, but I believe when Breed was bringing in the therapy dog, families were communicated with. Anyone who had any issue with it could communicate that, and they made a safety plan to address any
Okay.
issues.
I recommend we give Stella a certificate
Yeah.
of appreciation.
No.
That dog, amazing.
Yeah,
The
she is.
training
She's
going,
beautiful.
what transpired through the process to get Stella there, I never knew how much training and just
Yeah,
like,
mhm.
work it took, and how much of an investment it is to have that level of social emotional support.
Yeah,
Amazing. We're lucky, blessed.
yeah, we really are.
So if I could just clarify, we're adopting IMG as is, but we might, as MASC goes further, adopt some
Revise.
more
Yep.
or
Make some-
revisit it. Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
Yep, yep.
Because I
And-
think, yeah, for the superintendent, it has, that means it has something, right, like, it's basically what we already have now.
Correct.
And then as we go forward, we can parse it more.
Okay. Is that good, Mary? Good, okay. Well, I'm at a blank table. That is a wonderful thing, yes.
I'd like to move to adjourn.
Second,
Do we want to set another meeting?
yes, we absolutely can set another meeting.
On the record?
I will excuse myself.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well,
Or
do you want to
Charles
adjourn
waiting
and then
for
we
me.
can, yeah, why don't we
Speaking of-
move through with the adjournment and then we can, okay, so motion's been made to adjourn, it's been seconded, roll call, please.
Member Dugan?
Yes,
Member Magnolia?
Yes.
okay. Meeting adjourned. All right.
What dog hasn't been